justice, but to appear to do justice. That includes some person walking in off the street. They see some stranger who's not a court staff walking into a registry office. They ask, why is that person in the registry office? Why can't I? Or someone walked into a judge's office. Why did that person go to the judge's office? Why can't I? Or someone appears to get their case resolved faster than someone else. Their question is, why did that case go better for that person as opposed to me? So it's all about these commercial courts where I'm working. You find the very poor versus the very rich. The very helpless versus the very powerful. And why do they come to the court? They come to the court because they're hoping that there's a neutral, impartial forum for helping to resolve that dispute. The courts are there to protect citizens against the arbitrary use of power. The courts are balanced, in other words, between the executive branch. You see this not so often, but there are countries around the world where courts just don't work. And what happens when courts just don't work at all? Vigilantes, self-help, mobs, people fighting each other, taking the law into their own hands. That's not in anyone's interest. That destabilizes peace, everything. Fortunately, we don't have that in Indonesia. Maintain a formal record of all decisions of the status of all people. So, when someone from any place in the world walks into their court, they expect to know, what's the status of my case? When's my next hearing? When will I have a decision? Can you explain the process to me? Can I see my case file? Can you tell me exactly, explain to me what the process is in the past and going forward? They want information, they want to understand, and they want to be able to see in that case file everything about the history of their case and what's happened. What we've done on the project that I work on, this project that I'm working on is funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development. It's working with 5 courts. We call them model courts. They're the courts with jurisdiction over the commercial courts and the anti-corruption court. So we work with Central Jakarta, Makassar, Medan, Surabaya, Semarang. One of our big activities, primary activity, has been implementing automation, an automated case management system. Now here's the question. Do computers do automation? Do those things make courts excellent? The answer is sometimes yes, sometimes no. A case management system or a computer is as simple as this thing in my hand. Everyone knows what this is, right? It's a cell phone, right? First time I had one, I had no clue how to use it. It was like trying to find settings and all these different types of things. And it's a good tool, but I had to learn how to use it. If I take this to another country, I know how to use it. Now, it's great. I know how to find my addresses. I know how to call people. I know how to use the calculator. It developing it. It's important to think about automation in the context of case to expect this to happen by this date, and then we'll expect something else to happen. And if this does not happen, then I'm going to have to make a decision. Or if you don't show up, then I'm going to have to go ahead and take next steps. These are the sorts of things that we wrestle with. We have to stay within the law. We have to do what's appropriate. But early and continuous control is extremely important in effective case flow management. It's also important that we teach in our courts to strive for short scheduling. Again, I haven't seen this so much of a problem here, but I've seen in other countries, and there's always the risk of it happening, even in the United States, where people try to postpone cases for long periods of time. You don't want that to happen. The reason why you don't want extensions for long periods of time is because people start forgetting. And you don't want to forget what's happened, what was said. And you want to be sure you keep a very good record of exactly what happened as soon as possible after the hearing. That is a problem in the courts we're working with right now, that frequently the courts don't do an immediate record of the minutes of what happened. And then memories start to fade, and you're always wanting to fight against forgetting things. That record is important. It is important to try to be fair and to accommodate the parties. If someone is sick, if someone had a death in the family, there was an accident, things like that happen. That's called a reasonable accommodation. But you want to be always guarding against what we teach courts. You always want to be guarding against those people who abuse the process merely for the purpose of delay. And that creates the expectation on the part of the public that everyone's fair within the court, that no one gets any special treatment or privileges. Now, how does automation help all this? Well, computers help us because they keep track of everything. What I teach in our course is computers are not smart. Computers are actually quite stupid. Computers do not know how to think. I can never open my computer and say, who's right and who's wrong? Right? I can never open my computer and say, who should I decide in favor of in this case? Computers cannot do that. What computers do is they collect lots of information. They give us information. They help us keep track of how many cases came in last month. How many cases did we complete last month? Are we falling behind? Are we moving ahead? How many cases went over time standard? One of the things we're developing in our system is a report to compare how long cases actually took and to compare them against the time standards. How often are we going over time standards? How often are we under time standards? What types of cases are causing the most problem for us? Is it criminal? Are there certain civil cases that are causing more problems? There's lots of issues like that. We collect information in computers because they help us to keep track of how we're doing as a court. And as judges or as court staff, computers help us to keep track of information about the case. Okay? There's a story about a courthouse in New Orleans, Louisiana. I don't know if you heard about Hurricane Katrina a few years ago. People went back to look at the courthouse after the hurricane. What do you think they found? Nothing. The whole courthouse was gone. Not even a piece of paper was on the ground. But they put everything on the computer, and they backed up everything in a separate location. So they set up a new building, and they brought in all the information from